Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol-Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol-free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best-selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol-Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol-free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol-Free podcast. I'm so pleased you are here. I hope you've had a fabulous week. This week, on Saturday, I celebrated 4 years alcohol-free, which I just can't believe. If you'd asked me 4.5 years ago, would I be 4 years alcohol-free, advocating how by ditching drinking, you're not giving up anything, you're only gaining, that I'd be voicing how important it is to not drink and how it gives you a superpower, it makes you brave, and all the messaging. And I would have written a book and started a podcast, and I'd be coaching women on this topic and helping them to become alcohol-free and to thrive. I probably would have insisted on having another drink, and it wouldn't have been something I would have thought would have been my life as it is now. But I am so grateful for the 21-day break that I took back in November 2020 and everything that it's led to, because, as I said, I couldn't write it, but it was absolutely the best decision that I could have made. And it feels a bit surreal that I've now celebrated 4 years alcohol-free, because I remember after 21 days just thinking, how am I going to do an alcohol-free Christmas? How am I going to do an alcohol-free New Year? It's not going to happen. And anyway, it did. And here we are 4 years later. And it's incredible to think, because I say it's the best decision. Prior to stopping drinking, there was no reason for me to stop. Life was good. There was no rock bottom moment. I've got no road to Damascus, but I felt that alcohol was hindering me in some way, that maybe life could be better without it. And I don't think I was enjoying it as much either. And it was more of a habit, and it was about breaking the habit. But of course, your identity says you're the champagne queen, you're the hostess with the mostess, and that involves serving the best wines. And it was just something that had become my identity. And so if you're listening to this and thinking, I am beginning to feel like alcohol's hindering, it's not helping, or it's become a habit that I don't really like anymore, or you're getting into midlife and you're having symptoms, some perimenopause or menopause symptoms, and you're wondering why they feel so bad, taking out alcohol might be a really good thing for you to do, because it potentially exacerbates a lot of those hormonal changes that we experience as women. But it does give you the energy, the clarity, the confidence, the passion, the purpose, and everything back. So I do encourage you to take a break. Let me know how you get on. And if you want to have a chat about where you are and what you're looking to do, and you want some tips, then get in touch with me. I would love to work with you. I'm all about really helping female leaders gain clarity, energy, passion, purpose, confidence through reprogramming the subconscious mind, EFT tapping, breath work, human design, powerful questioning, mindset shifts, and just helping you see that you can absolutely thrive by being alcohol free. And for me, there are lots of things that I've done over the past 4 years, which again, I couldn't imagine, like running 2 marathons and doing yoga and publishing a book and starting this podcast and all the things. But I think really most importantly for me, I just feel like I'm more present. I love taking in nature. I feel less anxious. I feel more joy in the little things. I'm comfortable with who I am, and I've developed tools that really can help me cope with whatever life throws my way. And actually, that's so much more important. I think it's the inner work that's happened over the past 4 years that I've really appreciated. And of course, I love sharing this message as well. So if you're listening, I really encourage you to think about taking that break. And if you think life could be better physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally without it, then take the break and see what happens. And I am rooting for you. I'm speaking tomorrow at the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival at the NEC Birmingham on finding your passion in sobriety, because I absolutely think that you get a new lease of life when you stop drinking. And I'll be reporting back on how that went next week. For those of you who might be thinking that you want coaching, I wanted to share with you my Thrive AF method, because I talk about the Thrive AF method. You might have heard me talk about it, and it's everything that we do at Thrive Alcohol Free, and it helps female leaders break the habit of alcohol and gain clarity, confidence, energy, passion, and purpose. And this is through coaching, Finding Freedom Retreat, the online course. And they use tools which are helpful when it comes to things like goal setting and managing emotions and knowing your values, and also finding your passions as well as building habits and creating that alcohol-free toolkit that helps you sustain being alcohol-free. I'm mindful, though, I haven't really shared with you what the Thrive AF method is. So I thought I would share that. The Thrive AF method stands for Transformation, Health, Resilience, Intention, Vitality, Empowerment, Alcohol Free. And so if I go into those, the transformation part is really that deep personal change and growth. Fundamentally, you are changing completely. I say that ditching drinking is just the start. Really, it's the transformation journey that you go on afterwards. It's a personal growth and transformation journey that you go on. So transformation is the first one. Then health is all about restoring and nurturing your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. And so we go through, and I work with you on so many things when it comes to health and building those healthy habits, but we also talk about things like nutrition and sleep and, finding those physical, emotional, mental, spiritual practices that can help with your well-being and your health. And then resilience is all about building that inner strength and coping mechanisms and really being able to say no and set boundaries and know who you are, and actually manage emotions and all of that, all of those things to really help you build resilience. Intention is all about living mindfully and with purpose and really knowing what you want to do and being intentional about that. And then vitality is all about enhancing your energy and your vibrancy and your joy. And we do that through, with finding passions and hobbies. When you stop drinking, you do just have this energy. And then it's really finding what day-to-day things will bring you joy. And finally, empowerment is about owning your alcohol-free identity with pride and confidence, and just really being comfortable in your own skin and thinking about what is your future alcohol-free life going to be all about. And you can create that and you can define that. And it's so exciting. And of course, AF is alcohol-free. So Thrive AF is transformation, health, resilience, intention, vitality, empowerment, alcohol-free. So I hope that's helpful in terms of understanding what it is. When you go through the Thrive AF method, alcohol becomes insignificant and you realize you have a superpower. So if you'd like to explore it more and discover how it can help you, whether you're looking to break the habit of alcohol or you've taken a break from alcohol and wondering what next or not really enjoying it, then book a call and we can have a chat. I'd love to hear from you. So today's guest is Stephanie Brislin. When Stephanie learned that alcohol was only making her crippling anxiety and stressful life worse, she set course on changing her relationship with alcohol. By finding freedom from alcohol, she has more patience, peace, and presence with the ones she loves most. Through her training as an effective liminal psychology certified This Naked Mind coach, Stephanie helps other mums reacquaint with their inner strengths and develops healthy tools for all the ups and downs that motherhood brings. So I'm delighted to have Stephanie on the podcast today. So without further ado, here is the conversation with Stephanie. Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. How are you?
Dubé, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And also just wanted to say a big congrats to you because you just hit your year anniversary for this podcast.
I
And
did,
coming up, you
yeah,
have another big anniversary
I
of 4 years
do.
alcohol free. So congratulations
Well,
to
thank you so
you.
much. No, people don't normally come on and congratulate me. That was lovely, Stephanie. That's just, yes, wonderful. Thank you. It's
Yeah,
made me
I
feel
love
quite good.
celebrating.
How fabulous. Okay. So, for people that might not know you, why don't you tell us a bit about who you are and how you happen to be on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast?
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing this opportunity. Gosh, who am I? Well, right now I'm a certified This Naked Mind coach, and I really am passionate about helping other moms find freedom from alcohol because that was my story. And I know from talking to many women that I was not alone. It was not just a me thing. This is a cultural thing. This is a human thing, and everybody's experiencing it. And so being able to give back or help somebody reclaim their lives in the same way that I have just fills me with so much passion and joy.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love it that you're very specific, that it's mums that you help. And actually, there's such a huge mummy wine culture, isn't there? And there's this societal almost dependency on alcohol. And in order to parent, you need to drink, which is completely bizarre when you think about it. When you get little sleep anyway, and then you add that on top of it. And no wonder we were all walking around like zombies in the first few years. So I love that. I love that that's what you're focusing on. And so how did you end up being there? Maybe you can tell us a bit about your story, because obviously you certified with This Naked Mind, which is, for people who don't know, I would imagine if they're listening to this, you may do, but Annie Grace, This Naked Mind coaching. Annie Grace is amazing. She's got the book, she's got lots of other courses and things as well that she's done. So I love the fact that you've done that. We can touch on that a bit later on. But how did you end up getting to the point where you stopped drinking and you ended up wanting to become a coach? And what was the story up to that? What's your
Yeah,
story?
thanks, Sube. What I love so much about your work and your podcast is you're promoting that you don't have to hit rock bottom to be able to let go of something that isn't serving you in your life.
Mm,
And so I don't have a rock bottom. Yes, there were significant things that led up to like, oh, this isn't really how I want to be living my life. So I'll get a little bit into that. I started drinking as a teenager at a young age. I worked in the food industry and hospitality and beverage. And so that culture is obviously very much alcohol centered, right? By the time I was 20, I was working in a fine dining in California in a wine area. And so in order to do my job, I had to be very familiar and know my wines, right? So that I could engage with my clientele. And I was just immersed in that culture. And you know what, Tupe? I loved it.
mm,
I loved it all. It was like
mm,
that. I know you can relate because that was like how you socialized.
mm,
And gained friends, like you bonded over like working crazy hours together and then drinking into and shutting bars down late at night. That was just what I did. And then I moved to go to college, and I ended up going to a private Christian school, which had a rule against drinking alcohol. But it doesn't apply to me, right? Right? Transferring to college was extremely stressful for me. I'm a high achiever. I wanted to do my best. I was out of my comfort zone. I had left everything I known, and I wasn't able to connect to people by drinking because no, people didn't drink at this school. And if they did, it was very secret, hush hush. And so I felt so disconnected. My anxiety was just off the roof. And alcohol seemed to help with that, right? It seemed to
Mm.
help manage the anxiety. And it wasn't until many, 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 many years later that I realized that it wasn't. But I just continued on my life like that. And I kept working in the hospitality industry after graduating. I worked for a hotel for a long time and again fell back into that culture. Those were my people, the people who drank heavily, who worked hard and played hard, right? And so that's what I surrounded myself with. And that becomes normal to you, right? That way over drinking, it doesn't even seem like over drinking because everybody else around you is doing it. And I met my husband there, who is also in the industry. He's an executive chef. He had two small children. And so then we just continued hanging out with other families who also drank, and our kids would play together and we would drink, right? That was socializing. That was our fun weekend family time. And then it wasn't until I got pregnant with our daughter, and there was something in me that was like, you are going to need to stop. If you want to be a good mom and really enjoy this experience, this thing that you've wanted forever, you're going to have to stop drinking. And so I had every intention after I had her that I was done. But I didn't read any quit lit. I didn't have any support. I didn't do anything. I just said, I'm done. Right. And then I had her. And like you said, we're sleep deprived. My hormones are all over the place. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I went back to work when she was 3 months old, and it was just all too much. And so I went back to the thing that I knew that helps me through stress and anxiety because that was the only tool I had. And so then I drank for almost another 2 years. And towards the end of those 2 years, there were some like significant events that happened. It seemed like before in my drinking, there would be a night of too much, right? And I would have to apologize to some people and recount the things that I said and go find my phone or my key. There were those nights, but they were spaced out enough. Towards the end of my drinking, they were getting closer and closer. And it was happening too much, which included like a trip to the mountains with my husband's best friends, a trip with my parents and my sister, and then a trip to Hawaii with his family. And each one of those times was explosion, needing to apologize. My husband actually broke his leg in Hawaii after we were drinking. And so I was kind of like, if this isn't a sign, if I don't listen to this one, what's coming next, right? And so a friend had actually given me the book, This Naked Mind, before I went to Hawaii, and I brought it with me. I was like, I'm going to read this. And I'm like, no, I'm going to drink instead. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to read this book. Started reading it. I did Annie Grace's 30-day alcohol experiment. I did not make it 30 days. I made it 21 days, which was like huge. But what was different about this time is like I got back up and I tried again, right? Before, if I ever took breaks from drinking or whatever, I'd be like, well, a week is great. So obviously there's no issue here and I'm just going to keep drinking. And this time I was like, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get back up and try it again. And so that happened for a few months until March of 2020. And I think we remember what was going on in the world around then. Or maybe we all blacked it out of our memory by now. And there was just this feeling inside me of, I don't know what's going on in the world. I had enough alcohol-free time that I knew that I was stronger. I had more clarity. I had more patience. I was just better equipped for life and work and my family. If I didn't have alcohol, I'm going to stop and see what happens. And so that was 4.5 years ago now. And what I was able to reclaim in my life, I really wanted to give back to other people. And so that's why I decided to certify and help other people. That was a lot. Sorry.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. You did the complete opposite to the majority of the world, didn't you? Because March 2020 actually made people drink more, and you decided, no, I'm going to stop. So I'm curious, how did that go down? Because I remember in March 2020, we were homeschooling and obviously working from home and all of that. And all the WhatsApps were all about mummy deserves wine. Oh my goodness, we need to drink to get through it. Oh, when's the earliest I can start drinking when I'm homeschooling my child? It was all of those sort of things. And so it felt like everybody, and obviously since then we've seen the research that for women especially, the numbers have gone up in terms of the heavy drinkers and the amount that they were drinking during that time. And so how did you do the complete opposite? And how was that?
I think there's a part of me that has a rebellious nature and toupee of like,
Mm.
if everybody's doing something, I'm gonna do the other thing. So there's definitely a part of me that's like that. But I have more introverted tendencies anyways, so it really was kind of the perfect timing for me of
Mm.
just shutting down and coming back inside. And I was actually still going into the office back and forth. And my husband was laid off. He was home with our 2-year-old and the other kids. And so all of a sudden, more time to be with my family. Here I was so stressed out that I'm working way more than I wanted to be and feeling guilty that I'm not spending enough time with my family, with my baby, that I'm going to miss these like amazing years because she was 2 at that time. And then also feeling extremely guilty when I was with my family. And I knew that all of these things were happening at work. And so this was really an opportunity. It was a gift for me to slow down, to start paying attention to the things that were, I don't really like to use the word triggering, but triggering me or creating stress and anxiety.
Mm. Yeah, and that's great. I said I think it's very admirable because it was the complete opposite to the majority of people. And so there are a couple of things in your story that I found quite interesting. You talked about going to a Christian school for university, but it sounded like you weren't drinking or you were able to drink because it did sound like you maybe stopped for that period, having been in the hospitality industry.
I definitely tried to. It was like,
Mm.
okay, I'm gonna give this a shot, right? I'm gonna do it right. And I didn't because I was already of drinking age. I was legally
Mm.
allowed to drink.
Mm.
And it one felt like they were taking away my rights. Two, it was it was the tool that I knew. It was the answer to so many things in my life at that
Mm.
stage of like, that's how you meet friends. That's how you deal with stress. That's how you have a good time, right? And
Mm.
so I have this idea of what college life is supposed to be like. Meanwhile, my sister is going to one of the notorious party schools, so I'm like, what? Why is she getting all this fun time? And I'm over here, like, not getting to, they won't even let me drink. So I did. It was in secret. And I actually got in trouble twice. And it was 3 strikes and you're out kind of situation. And so I remember having a conversation with my dad after the second one, and he's like, "Can you please just keep it together until you graduate?" And I was like, "No promises." You know, luckily I did. But that was my mindset. And looking back at that now, with the clarity that I have already, then I was very much in the mindset, I need this to survive. This is part of me and my life.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we all thought that alcohol gave us something. We thought that alcohol was doing something for us. Otherwise, why would we drink? Why would we do it? And then from the sounds of it, fast forward to a couple of years or a year before you stop drinking and all these different vacations and trips that suddenly made it a bit more clear that it maybe wasn't serving you. What was the actual crux of it? Because you said you ended up stopping for or 21 days for the 30-day experiment, but what eventually, because you said then you got back to it after that. So how long was that, and what instigated you to say enough's enough? And then how did you do it? Because did you just stop, or did you have any help, or what was that about? What was that like?
Yeah, those are great questions. So it was about a 3-month flip-flop of, I know you'll relate because you like experimenting, right? We're just in this phase of we're trying to understand, right? Why we're turning to this thing, why we're giving this thing so much control and power in our lives. So one was releasing and dropping the judgment and shame around it. After 21 days and I drank, instead of doing my normal, "Stephanie, look how terrible you are, look how much you suck, you're never going to do this," right? Instead of that, okay, wow, 21 days, that's awesome. I wonder if we can like tack on some more days, right? So really bringing curiosity and compassion to it and leaving behind the judgment and shame, which I would say is probably one of the biggest challenges for people, because if you really pay attention to the way that you talk to yourself, you would be amazed, right? You wouldn't say these things to just a random stranger on social media that you don't ever have to see. Like, but you say it to yourself every day. And so being really conscious about the way that I was talking to myself. And then also it was really breaking down two of my biggest beliefs. And I was able to do this by reading Annie Grace's This Naked Mind. One, alcohol helped with my anxiety. And I got curious about, is that really true? Because in the moment, it feels like it. You've had a long, stressful day. You get home from work, your kids are like, it's crazy. And you're like, I'm just going to go and have a sip. And that immediate sip, and you're like, oh my God, now I can like, and I just like feel okay. And so we associate that alcohol is providing that to us. What we don't associate is in 20 minutes, how the blood alcohol levels start dropping, right? Now our body is creating more stress hormones to block it off. And the next day, it's even more, because if you drank like me, I drank until I went to sleep. And so then my sleep is just whack. I'm not getting the rest I need. And I'm waking up with terrible anxiety. And I believed that that terrible anxiety was just my normal. I did not associate that alcohol was causing that. And once I connected those two, it was a huge turning point for me of breaking down that belief. The other belief was that alcohol made me a better parent because I could loosen up. and I was more fun and playful. And when I really looked at it, yeah, maybe it started off that way, but the evening did not end that way. I would become more aggravated, irritated. I would even say things that weren't aligned with the way that I want to talk to my kids, right? And I was snappy. And really, what I was showing my kids, oh, when life gets hard and challenging, here's this thing that you turn to. And that broke my heart a little bit. And so being able to gain that awareness of like, wow, I'm modeling to them what their future is going to look like, of how they handle challenges and stress. And so really breaking down those two major beliefs helped me to want to move forward. I joined at this Naked Mind group because they were offering some groups during the pandemic for people to just call in. And I didn't turn my camera on. I didn't talk. I didn't talk in the chat because I'm shy. And I always used alcohol to help me with those things. I'm like, I don't have alcohol to help me. And after time of just showing up to these calls, hearing these people's stories who, okay, maybe it's not exactly like mine, but I can relate to a lot of their experiences and how they were feeling. And I'm like, oh, wow, this isn't just me. This is this is everyone, right? Listening to podcasts about other people's stories. It just gave me so much hope and feeling support that I started engaging in the chat. And then eventually I turned on my camera and then I started talking and I created relationships and continued on with the coach until I really felt like, wow, I want to do this. And it was probably about 6 months alcohol free. And I had my sister's wedding and I was the maid of honor. As you can imagine, it can be stressful. And I was not drinking and like big party drinking, right? And walking out of that, feeling 100% confident, 100% certain I didn't want to drink. That was it for me. I knew it. And so then it was just like full steam ahead after that. Again, a lot. I'm so sorry. It's
Oh, that's great. I really liked what you said about really breaking down those two limiting beliefs. And the person listening has probably got limiting beliefs. The whole point is we need to ask ourselves, what do we like about alcohol and drinking? And what don't we like? And what do we think it's giving us? And what do we think it's not giving us? And then actually questioning that and saying, is that true? Is so helpful. And then researching what it is actually doing. So you did that with this Naked Mind and joining the group and everything else. But we do think it helps with anxiety. That's probably one of the anxiety and stress. We think it helps us relax. We think it helps us. So hence what you said about being a better parent, because you're more relaxed. We think it helps us sleep. We think it helps us do all these things. Plus, of course, it's glamorous, it's sophisticated, it's what all the celebrities do, it's in movies, it's being promulgated everywhere. So, yeah, of course, right? So to actually stop and say, no, I'm going to really question this and break it down and think about it and work out if it's true, I think that's a really great piece of advice for anyone who might be listening and thinking, is this really something that I'm doing for the right reasons, because actually those reasons might not be right. And then I always talk about being kind to yourself. It is horrendous how awful we are to ourselves and the things we say to ourselves. And actually, with people I've worked with as well, I ask the question, do you love yourself? Do you actually think highly of yourself? Do you believe in like looking after yourself, probably self-care and all of that? And people look at you, it's at first when they're going through the process, it's alien to them. It is absolutely alien to them to really love themselves. What's that? It makes people feel uncomfortable as if they're not allowed to. And so again, when you talked about, the compassion side and really just watching what you were saying to yourself, did that become more noticeable as you went through this journey? Because the other thing that I tend to work on with people is how to manage emotions. Once you stop drinking, you mentioned shame and guilt coming through, and it all starts to hit you at some point. And I always say, don't worry about that in the first couple of months, just focus on not drinking. The rest of it we can manage later. But how did you cope with that, and thinking about things like Hawaii when your husband broke his leg, and just thinking about what could you do differently? What was your experience with that?
This is great. So my daughter was 2 when I quit drinking, and I kind of just reverted back into toddler mode. Like I would watch Sesame Street with her and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood spinoff and all of these shows about your emotions and they're okay. And I was blown away by this. I like, this is okay. Like I can feel these things and it's okay. And it was wild. It was like I was learning along with her. I really felt like I had to go back almost and reparent myself. Like,
Mm,
it's okay, Stephanie. You're doing good. This is hard. You can do hard things, right? And just really shifting the way that I talk to myself to talk to myself like I talk to her, right?
mm,
And so it's kind of wild how like life lines up and you follow your path and your purpose. It's like, what are the odds that I'm like learning about my emotions with my daughter, you know? And it just all kind of fell into place. But that's a really great tool. And I love how you offer steps to your listeners. Here's really great steps to just like, you don't have to figure it out all today, right?
mm,
Just take one tiny step forward.
mm,
And if listening to the way you talk to yourself is a step forward for you, that's awesome. If you
mm,
could, if you are a parent, maybe try to talk to yourself like you do your children,
mm,
like you're the child. It is amazing how different you feel feeling held and seen and supported and how you want to move
mm.
forward.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, and I love Inside Out and Inside Out too. I think they are brilliant when it comes to emotions, and you do sit there and think it's just so clever the way that you are taught this, I suppose, when you're a child, but then somehow you forget. And it's how do you come back to you, really, which is part of this journey, rediscovering you. Okay, so maybe let's go on to, you obviously were in this Naked Mind community for a while, and then you went on to do some coaching. And so maybe tell us a bit about what else has happened since you know, 4.5 years. It does keep getting better and better, I think. But what are maybe some of the things that have happened over the 4.5 years that could encourage someone who is thinking about doing this?
Dubé, you're so right. Everything is better. Like just my marriage was really centered around drinking. That's how we became friends and we dated, and that was our relationship. And
Mm,
so it was very much on rocky territory for a little while. And you know what? A year after I quit drinking, my husband quit drinking.
mm,
And so now I'm gonna cry because it's just so wonderful,
mm,
both alcohol free. We have just really come home to ourselves and wanting to be in alignment with ourselves, but also each other so that we can just be the best supportive, loving parents we can to our kids. We had another baby, which would not have happened if we were still drinking. And so our lives and our hearts are just so full. And our oldest is 17, and then our youngest is 1. And you would not imagine how fast that goes by, right? That story that we're told that we need alcohol to survive our kids because they're stressful, that time goes by so fast. I'm sure you can relate to it. You're like, what?
Mm.
10
Yeah,
years? Where did that
yeah,
time go? Right?
exactly. Yeah.
And so being able to be really present and engaged in their lives is the greatest gift, as well as really reclaiming our own lives, right? Because I think moms also fall into this trap of, well, I'm just going to center my whole life around my kids and just make sure that they have this perfect life. And in the process, we leave behind ourselves and our individuality and the things that we need. And so being also to really like make time for myself and my passions. Because before, alcohol took all that time. I didn't have time to do that. And so now, instead of waking up with this like terrible dread and anxiety every morning, like I wake up, I'm like, yes, I'm tired. I have a 1-year-old. I get up a few times a night. Yes, I'm tired. But I'm also excited about what we get to experience that day, right? And just everything, the potential that's ahead of all of us, because when you're alcohol free, it's endless, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Endless potential. Absolutely. I think that's, yeah, really well said. So you obviously now work with mums specifically, from a coaching perspective, or you want to encourage mums specifically. What is the biggest challenge that you would say that mums have, and why is alcohol to blame?
Yes. So I just have such a strong passion for moms. I don't discriminate against anybody who wants help, though. I have worked with men. I have worked with women who do not have children, right?
Yeah.
But just my passion is moms because I know it from my own experience, the
Mm,
difference of what it feels like to drink with kids and what it feels
mm,
like to not drink.
mm,
And a lot of the women that I've also worked with are grandmothers now.
mm,
And they say, I can't go back and change the way that I was with my kids. I can't go
mm,
back and change that. But I can
mm,
change my habits and my ability to be present with my grandkids, right?
mm,
A lot of women, their grown children have a choice now of whether or not grandma gets to hang out with their kids, right? When your
mm,
kids are kids, they don't really get a choice. They're along for the ride. But when they're grown
mm,
up, they get a choice. And they get a choice
mm,
if you get to be around their kids.
mm,
And while that is so beautiful, and I've seen how it's changed so many women's lives that I've worked with, now they've have mended relationships with their grown children, and now they're present for their grandchildren, and how that has just like healed them. I also can't help but think, wow, what if we just didn't wait for that? What if we didn't wait for the rock bottom moment? What if we tackled this thing now before it became a huge problem so that when your kids are grown, you don't have these regrets about how you weren't really engaged because you were a bottle in every night? And I think that that's really challenging for moms to see, moms with kids at home, because they're in it. It's so hard to see the outside when you're in it. And I'm not saying it's easy being a parent. It is extremely challenging, but nobody ever said it was going to be easy. If you think about all of the things that really have mattered to you in your life, whether it's degrees or certifications or accomplishments. They were not easy things, right? They were challenging, they were hard, they tested you. And those are the things that you're most proud of. That's also like parenting. It's not easy, it's challenging, right? But that is probably the biggest job that you will ever have, the most important that you will ever have, at least from my perspective. And so, really, just offering moms support because I feel like there's so much pressure from our society of how moms have to be everything and do everything, right? They have to raise these perfect little kids and they're working and keeping up with the men, right, in their careers and and also making sure that they look great, right? Because in order to be acceptable, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the comedian Jim Gaffigan, but he's like, remember when moms used to just look like moms? And now they all look like yoga instructors, right? There's just so much pressure on
Mm.
moms. And if we could all just come together and be like, let's drop the charades here, okay? Like, this is not Pinterest perfect decorations and my hair and everything's perfect. It's not, right? That was actually one of the things when I quit drinking. I got off of social media. I was like, this is not good for me. And I knew that it wasn't real. It's not true. A lot of the
Mm.
stuff that you see on there, people are just sharing what they want you to see, right?
Mm.
And so I'm like, I need to figure out what the truth is here. That's
Mm.
not leading me there. So, in a long-winded way, I think that really just offering support to women and just coming together because we're all really in this together, right? And just really allowing space to just be okay or be not okay, right? Just drop the charade that everything's perfect. And if your listeners feel like they need permission for that, I'm giving you permission for that. You do not need to be perfect.
Yeah, always progress over perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. So I think we can all be very harsh on ourselves, and comparison is the thief of all joy. It really is. It steals our joy. It's not helpful. We don't need to do it. We really don't. And I love that. We all look like yoga instructors. That's quite funny. I think that's such a great cause, really empowering women, mums, especially, and giving them permission to be themselves and to work out who they are. And being alcohol free absolutely helps you to do that. And it is challenging as well. At first, it's a challenging thing to go through. But when you get to the other side of that, you can really be as present as you want to be. You have that clarity. You're able to really see the wood for the trees, as it were, and not feel like you have to keep up with anybody because you're perfect as you are. And perfect is, we're all sort of wonderfully made. So we need to remember that and not worry, regardless of your perfect's not my perfect. And vice versa. And it's not about perfection, but we are perfect in our own rights. So we need to remember that. Okay, is there anything else you want to share with the listener?
I feel like that was a lot.
It's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I struggled with this, Dupe, because I wonder if you can relate. Now being here, 4 years alcohol free, I have all these tools and resources and I know how wonderful they all are. And I'm like, do all these things, right? This is so great. And I have to pull back and remember that can feel like too much. Just take one step forward today. The rest will all fall in line. It's okay. Just take one step forward
So
today.
what's that one step that someone could potentially do?
Yeah. Ooh, great question. One step could be ordering a Quitlet book. One step could be listening to a podcast to listen to somebody else's story like this one. Or I know you have a great book, right? One step could be connecting with somebody else, like a real person who has had this experience. It doesn't have to be this big proclamation of I'm never drinking again. Actually, I don't even say that. It's just, I think maybe I'm going to try. I think that maybe the first step could be a willingness to try. And I think that's easy enough for everyone.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we get to do this. It's a choice, right? So it's not that we have to, we get to. And I think
Yeah.
it's maybe reframing, isn't it? And just changing the way you verbalize things. We don't have to do anything, but we get to. And we both know you're only gaining, you're not giving anything up. So I
100%.
love that. Do one small step today and see what happens. And yeah, okay. So as with every guest, I'd love to hear, what does thriving alcohol-free mean to you, Stephanie?
I love this question so much, Dupe, because I specifically remember drinking a glass of wine with my husband after a long day. He's got his beer, I got my wine, I smoked while I drank, and feeling just like so just exhausted and depleted, and telling him, I am so tired of us just barely surviving every day. I want us to be thriving. And at that time, I had no idea what that meant, what that looked like. It was just this feeling inside of me that there had to be more than this. And I was right. I love when I'm right. Thriving to me means, it means freedom. Freedom to authentically be myself, and not only just be okay with it, like love myself, right? And that was something that I did not have access to when I was drinking for many, 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 many years. And being able to give that to myself allows me to give that to so many other people. And so thriving is really just the freedom to be yourself and not feel controlled by any other force outside of you. We are so strong and empowered. We can do anything, really. And so it opens up everything. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's really good. I wonder, what advice would you have given yourself when you had that conversation with what you know now? Because obviously, at the point where you're thinking, I'm exhausted, how do we not just survive? How do we thrive? I'm sure there must be someone listening who's potentially in that position and they're just exhausted life. What advice would you maybe give? Other than obviously the other side is freedom, but what would you maybe say to that, to your younger self?
Yeah, probably listen to your instincts. You know better than anyone else, you and your life, right? Like, listen to your instincts. You were given that for a reason, and nobody can tell you any better than you can.
Love that. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you and you being so vulnerable and sharing your story. And yeah, thank you very much. And I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dupe. It's been a pleasure.
Take care. Well, thank you, Stephanie. I do hope you enjoyed that episode and you were inspired by her story. And I do agree that thriving alcohol free means freedom. It really does. I think freedom to authentically be yourself and to love yourself is just so important. And that's why I have the Finding Freedom retreat, which is happening on the 5th to the 12th of June next year. And I'd love it if you joined me. The Finding Freedom retreat is going to be an amazing transformational experience where you will thoroughly be transformed through the activities, through the coaching, and through really getting to know yourself and stepping off your normal everyday world and coming into an environment that is completely different, where you have time to think, where you have time to experience the Balinese culture, meet like-minded women, and really immerse yourself for 7 nights, 8 days in you, spending time on you. And it's so important. I think self-care is so important, looking after yourself, being able to really know what you want and actually giving yourself the space to do that is really important. If you'd like to join me on what's going to be a wonderfully amazing experience, then feel free to go to the link below and book a call. I'd love to talk to you and see if it's right for you to join the Finding Freedom retreat. And you can secure your spot with a deposit now, and then we can arrange payment plans over the course of a few months so that it's manageable. And yeah, I can't wait. I know that it's going to have the most fabulous women, and I am looking forward to doing coaching with you every day and really drawing out the possibilities and the things that you can be excited about and helping you figure out what next and how you really want to thrive alcohol free. So if that's of interest, let me know. I'd love to jump on a call. It will be with me. We'll have a call, we'll discuss where you are, what you'd like to get out of the retreat, and we'll work out if it's the right thing for you. But I'm excited to talk to you, and I do think it's going to be a life-changing experience for those that join. Okay, well, I do hope you have the most wonderful week, and if you're going into this week thinking, I've been thinking about this thing for a long time. I've been wanting to stop drinking for a long time, but I keep putting it off, or I've tried to stop for a bit and then I've started again and I'm drinking more and it makes me feel crap and all the rest of it. Then just make a decision. If you'd like some support, then you can get in touch. All right, have the most wonderful week, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.